Okay, here I am with another Kawan Charles update. It seems like the updates are starting to roll themselves out more and more often. I've done like 4, now maybe 5 videos in the last just a couple of days just surrounding this case. And I have to give a shout out to Dark Visitor and shout out to any and everybody who has been helping to contribute with information about this ongoing story. And I was reading one of the comments. They said that this is a story right here that they hope they don't allow to go cold. And the only way you can keep it warm is by continuing to pressure that this story stays in the news. But anyway, like I said, shout out to Dark Visitor because they sent me this update. And this one's going to be more focused on Janet Irvin more than anybody else for the most part. Because the last video that I did, it was talking about the autopsy and I'm trying to make sure I get it right. The fact that the family is still on the run, as far as we know. But this one's going to be more so about Janet Irvin and her criminal background. Now, if you remember a couple updates back, I said that she had a criminal background, but I wasn't sure what it was. Well, this article that I'm going to read from actually is going to talk about her past criminal history. Because as you can see, this is yet another mugshot. If you remember the one I did when I had a picture of her mugshot there along with her son and her husband, it was a different mugshot other than this. In that picture, she had red hair, her hair was down, and she had glasses on. In this one, her hair is pulled back and it's black and she has no glasses on. So this is a different mugshot. But this one right here is going to dive into the criminal history of her. And it's probably going to talk, of course, a little bit more about Kawan Charles as well. So this says, woman who was the last person to see the tragic teen Kawan Charles alive has history of arrest for drugs and burglary and lost custody of her kids after she was accused of neglect and domestic violence by their father. So this woman appears to me to have a violent streak. And they said she lost custody of her own kids. Let's get into it. The white woman, who authorities believe was the last person who saw black teenager Kawan Charles alive before his corpse was found on a Louisiana sugarcane field 4 days later, has an extensive arrest record that includes drug-related charges as well as burglary and receiving stolen property, DailyMail.com has learned exclusively. What's more, the woman, Janet Irvin, age 37, temporarily lost the custody of 2 of her 3 children a decade ago after she was accused of domestic violence and neglect by her children's father, according to court records in Lafayette, Louisiana. The man, Joshua Romero, accused Irvin in a handwritten statement to a local family court of suffering from drug and alcohol problems, stealing prescription medication and money, dropping their then 2-year-old son on the floor, and allowing the child to drink her beer. Are y'all hearing this? This is what she did to her own kids. So I wouldn't put it past her to do something heinous to someone else's. The revelations come as the family of 15-year-old Kawan Charles has been unable to talk to Irvin about what could have happened on October 30th when he walked away from Irvin's trailer in the tiny town of Laurelville and into sugar fields. As far as we're concerned, Kawan was under her, Janet Irvin's care, said Selena Charles, a spokeswoman for Kawan's family. We just like to know what happened. DailyMail.com visited the Chastant trailer park where Kawan was last seen alive and witnessed the crushing poverty of Louisiana's agricultural countryside, with many of the trailers damaged, unstable, unmaintained, or just too old to be comfortable. One of the park's residents, who asked not to be identified by name, told us where deputies with the St. Mary's Parish Sheriff's Office found the teen's lifeless body after pinging his cell phone in the evening of November 3rd. We walked to a vacant field in the back of an abandoned school through a thin hedge made of brush and trees and traveled about 1,000 feet south alongside rows of 10-foot sugar canes before arriving at a drainage ditch littered with a discarded purple cooler and other debris. Nobody ever comes here, said the resident. There's no reason he should have been walking around here, especially at night. You can't see anything. Of course, he didn't go alone. He had help getting there. And as far as I'm concerned, we're looking at one of the people that helped guide him there. According to family spokeswoman Charles, the teenage boy was picked up by Irvin and her 17-year-old son Gavin at home in the nearby town of Baldwin on the afternoon of October 30th. Kawan, she said, lived in a newly built, comfortable suburban development in Youngsville, Louisiana, with his mother, Roxanne Nelson, and her husband. In case y'all didn't know, his mother, Kawan's mother, is not married to his father. She's married to another guy, and to my knowledge, someone told me that the guy is Caucasian. That's what somebody told me. A week before he died, however, Kawan was sent to live at his dad's house in Baldwin, 35 miles away. At his new school, Kawan had been in contact with Gavin Irvin, age 17, who had been in school with Kawan back in Youngsville and, like him, moved. For an unknown reason, Selena Charles said Gavin and his mother, Janet, picked up Kawan at his father's home and drove to their rented trailer in Laurelville. Gavin claimed Kawan left their trailer park home on his own and didn't say where he was going. You know what? Now that I was wondering what made him leave the home and not tell his dad where he was going, especially since it seems that him and his dad had such an open relationship as far as the lines of communication being. I wonder if he was contacted by Janet Irvin or by her son Gavin and told him not to tell anybody where they were going. And he just decided, you know what? Well, I trust them. They wouldn't do anything to me. Okay, I'll go along with it. And that's why he didn't tell his dad. That's a possibility right there. Gavin claimed left their trailer park home and didn't say where he was going. Janet has not spoken to his family. They have now been evicted from their trailer park home, the Washington Post reports. Sheriff Tommy Romero said investigators have spoken with at least one witness who reportedly saw Charles before his death in the area where he was later found. We have obtained and reviewed video evidence showing Kawan Bobby Charles near that area, he said. Video evidence indicates no other individuals present with Kawan Charles or anyone else present for some time before or after he is seen on the recording. A few hours later, according to the autopsy, Kawan was dead in the drainage ditch where at the time he had ankle-deep water. Which at the time had ankle-deep water. Now, people were saying, and I agree, they said, how could someone drown in ankle-high water unless his head was pushed into the water? Ankle-high water could be more of like a puddle because there's only so much distance between the ground and your ankle. So he was most likely had his head shoved into that water where he drowned, most likely. The St. Mary's coroner's office determined early on that Kawan may have drowned. His lungs were filled with mud and water. But when Kawan's relatives called in to identify the body and saw his face, they suspected there was more to his disappearance and death when they noticed part of his lips and left cheek were missing while there were lacerations to his forehead. The medical examiner blamed the damage on aquatic animals, while the family compared the photos to Kawan's face to that of Emmett Till, beaten and lynched by two white men in 1955 in Mississippi after he was falsely accused of whistling at a white woman. Kawan's family is waiting for the results of an independent autopsy. The teen is to be laid to rest on Saturday. Early on, the sheriff's office investigation centered on the Irvin's trailer. It was searched but yielded no clue of what could have caused Kawan's death. A few days later, however, the Irvins and a man living with them were evicted from the trailer park by Buddy Chaston, a local mechanic whose family owns the trailer park. "Yet I evicted them," Chaston said as he fixed a client's flat tire at his shop in Laurelville only traffic light. "They had until November 12th to leave. They didn't flee, they were told to leave. I have no idea where they went. They weren't welcome here, but it had nothing to do with the death of that young man." Interesting statement. He said they didn't flee, but they had to leave. I still am shaky about this right here, because what's the irony that they had to leave by the 12th and this whole incident happened right a little bit before that time, and they had to be out by that time. I still say that they fled because everything lines up perfectly for them to leave just in time before they go in for more questioning of this family. Unless, and like I said, they were the last ones to see Kawan alive. So why would they stay? Because some people, when they're getting evicted, they'll stay up to the last day. They were gone almost an entire week before before they were officially kicked out. But he said they were told to leave. I'm not too entirely sure about that. This is a big question mark still hovering over that one for me. While Chaston declined to discuss the reasons for the eviction at first, he eventually admitted he received reports of drug activity at the trailer and wanted no part of it. Now that I could possibly believe, now knowing this woman's drug history. That part I can kind of believe. Like in rural towns everywhere where boredom and desperation from a combustive combination, opioids, and crime have become the scourge of a small town, Louisiana. According to court records, mother of three Janet Irvin had been arrested 5 times since 2002. She has a date with a local criminal court judge in December to face charges of possession of a synthetic cannabinoid and possession of drug paraphernalia dating to 2019, back in June. Now listen to that. December is in a couple weeks. We're going to see if she's going to pop up for that court date. But see, with this situation right here, it's going to be like, okay, do I go or do I skip it? But that's going to make it even more worse for her. So we're going to keep an eye out for that court date. In February 2019, she was charged with felony possession of hydrocodone after a traffic stop by Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office, according to court records. The case was dismissed when prosecutors admitted the reason for the search of her vehicle by deputies, sparked by allegations that the deputies smelled marijuana inside the vehicle, was not supported by facts. In July 2011, Irvin was charged with simple burglary and criminal trespass. She took a plea deal and ended up on 1-year probation. She failed, however, to appear in a follow-up hearing and was rearrested in 2013 for violation of probation, according to public records. She served 2 days at the local jail. In 2006, Irvin was charged with possession of stolen goods and theft by fraud. She took another deal from the prosecutors and received 6 months probation. See, this woman just been constantly getting off scot-free, but this time by her fleeing the way that she did. So she's a natural fleer. That's probably not a word, but I'm making it up as I go. It just seems like this woman doesn't take any type of accountability for any of the crimes she engages in, which doesn't surprise me considering she's fleeing from this crime. In 2002, Janet Irvin was charged with possession of alcohol by a minor. She was 19, and the case was dismissed after she paid a $116.50 fine. In family court, too, allegations have been made against the last person believed to have seen Kawan alive. In 2010, the father of her 2 youngest children told the court in a sworn statement asking for a restraining order in the custody of 5-year-old Kylie and 2-year-old Joshua that Irvin was abusive and violent. I want her and her drug and alcohol problems away from me and my kids, electrician Joshua Romero wrote at the time in a statement. She's dropping my son on the floor, allowing my kids to play in the street, allowing my 2-year-old to drink out of her beer, stealing my prescription medication, my money, taking my truck in the middle of the night while we are asleep. This woman is hell on wheels. She's like a Tasmanian devil. In time, the judge did approve a restraining order that mandated Irvin to stay at least 100 feet from Romero's home and the electric company he worked for. The order was rescinded in 2017 when Irvin was able to prove she had straightened out. Irvin's dad, Alvin Irvin, told DailyMail.com he doesn't know where his daughter is and hasn't spoken to her in 3 months. He hinted that no one else in their family has contacts with Irvin. Okay, so now I got to retract something. So y'all remember in the update that I did a couple days ago where it was talking about it had her picture, her son's picture, and said Alvin Irvin? That was not her husband. That is her dad. I'm thinking that was her husband. I'm sure many others did too. So apparently that Alvin Irvin is her dad, not her husband. I have no idea what happened with that kid, Kawan, but whatever's happening, she brought that on herself. So it seems to me that this woman just is not good at all. Like, no one really has anything good to say about her, not her, the man she had children with. Look at her criminal history. Even her own dad with that statement when he said whatever she did to that kid. Or he says he has no idea what happened, but whatever is happening, she brought it on herself. That almost sounded like a slight Freudian slip, like he may know something, because I think they said that he lived with her, or lived near her. So keep him on the radar, because he most likely does know something surrounding this case involving her and Kawan. But from what I've read so far in this woman's criminal history, she's just no good. She's no good at all. Like she doesn't have any redeemable qualities about herself. Like everything about her is just bad. And her criminal record speaks for itself. A history of drug use, allowing her 2-year-old to drink beer from her bottle, dropping her son on the floor, her ex having to get a restraining order against her, so he can get custody of the kids and to stay away from his company. And now leading all the way up to this. Because I didn't even know that she had other kids outside of Gavin Irvin because they never talked about him. But this is why we're doing constant updates as we go along. Like I said, this story is getting more interesting by the day. And like I said, I'm glad these updates are constantly coming out because that means now people are taking it more seriously. Either that or they hearing our voice and we applying that pressure and was like, look, we ain't going to stop until we get to the end of this thing. So like I said, we going to be here for a while. But I hope y'all stay along for the journey, if you want to call it that. And again, shout out to everybody who has been sending me updates because it's because of y'all that I'm able to come out and do the commentaries about the story, because it's not getting any traction in mainstream media for the most part, unless it's local media for those who live in that area. And this is a small town. So, but it is what it is. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments.